everyone, and welcome to the first episode of season 3 of the Holly Acklin podcast. Today, we are lucky to have Mr. Worford. He is a UI designer at Career Foundry. And just to quickly start, could you quickly give a brief introduction about who you are, and after that, maybe you can kind of get into your background and your childhood and how that kind of influenced your career choices.
Absolutely. Well, first off, let me say thanks for having me on, guys, and I'm glad that you reached out to me. I got to say, I'm impressed with how professional and just and organized you guys are, and you've got your own podcast, and most kids at your age are spending a lot of time playing Fortnite, I think, it's admirable that you guys are doing this, and I think it's really cool. And so just a little bit about my background. So I don't want to bore you too much with my personal story, but I'll try to include kind of relevant details to how I got into this field and the things that I think have helped me get there. So I didn't really grow up great with computers. I didn't have a smartphone until 2013. I was not great at graphic design, and I'm still not. I don't consider myself great at it, and I do not have a formal college degree. I grew up in a lot of art classes, doing a lot of drawing and painting, and in high school I was in an AP art class, and I got a 4 out of 5 on my AP art portfolio, and got some credit to skip some classes in college, and I went to CSU and studied fine art for a year. And then later I ended up studying industrial design at Metro State in Denver. And then sort of the winds sort of blew me across the ocean to China, and I went to China to visit my brother, and he was living there, and I liked it there, and thought that the culture and the language were very interesting, and so I ended up moving there, where I lived there for about 4 years, teaching English and studying Mandarin Chinese at a university. That's where I met my wife, who is a native of Sichuan province in China. And in 2015 or 16, we moved back here to Denver, Colorado. At the time, I was trying to kind of make it as an artist, and I was writing and illustrating some books and doing some medical illustrations for physical therapists, and just trying to make ends meet. And in 2017, we had our daughter and my first child, and so I kind of hit me that I really needed to get my stuff together and and to support my family and provide for my family. And so I sort of thought that I would want to try to get into tech, because I knew that there were a lot of people without college degrees who are able to make it in tech, and I knew that that the pay is good, and the work seems challenging and exciting. And so I took a 6-month full stack web development boot camp that was run out of the University of Denver. After that, I tried to apply for probably about 100 developer jobs, and just wasn't hearing back barely at all, if at all. And so I was sort of frustrated at that time. And honestly, I never really felt that development was quite the right fit for me. I got a good understanding of a range of technologies, from front end to back end to kind of modern JavaScript libraries like Angular and React. And I sort of got how everything worked, but I was just never great with the creating functions and the logic of coding. So around that time, I was building a portfolio website, and I sort of discovered the field of UX UI design, and started looking more into it, and I just felt that it was a really good fit for me, and it had kind of a creative aspect to it, which I thought would be a good fit for me. And so then I registered for an online boot camp with Career Foundry, and I also had sort of a friend who was starting a DevOps boot camp, and so I kind of worked as an intern with his company, collaborating on GitHub a little bit, and that was sort of my first experience with Agile, just sort of the meetings structure, and so then anyways, at the time I was in the Career Foundry UX course, and before I even finished that, I actually got an internship at a company called Open Technology Solutions that does tech services for 3 different credit unions, one of them being Belco Credit Union, which is here in Denver, Colorado. Um, and so that's kind of how I got into the industry, and now I just started a new job this week. I actually got laid off from my old job about a month ago, and just started at a new company called Motive Care that has moved their headquarters here from Atlanta, and I think it's a really exciting company. They offer a ride service and a food delivery for folks who kind of need extra care. So it's a service that's paid for through health insurance, for folks who just need a little help, extra help, so that they can't really just take Lyft or Uber or use some of the other services. So yeah, I just got started there this week, and it's been awesome. And yeah, I'm just excited to share some more with you guys.
That's a really awesome background, and congratulations on the new job.
Thank you very much.
So one question I had is, you mentioned a lot of like, I think you did a lot of schooling like in here and then in China. You said you never really finished a formal degree.
Mhm.
When you decided to get into development design, did you consider going back to school, or did you kind of just know like I should try these online boot camps instead? And if so, where did you get that idea?
Yeah, I guess I considered I actually was considering finishing my industrial design degree, because I finished all my general studies. I think maybe my last general studies that I would need was a statistics class or something. And then from there on out, it would all be pretty much major specific classes specific to industrial design. But it was going to be 2 years probably to finish the degree, and I was really hoping to just get into the industry quickly. And from the research that I had done, I thought that that the boot camps offered a good opportunity to do that.
So kind of talking about like boot camps and your software development pursuit, I was kind of wondering how come or why do you think that, like you said you emailed or applied for 100 plus jobs, and you said none responded. So do you have like I guess some sort of idea as to why that happened, and maybe um like what you learned from that experience of not getting any emails back, and then possibly some advice for people who might be interested in trying to apply for software development jobs?
Sure. Yeah, I think to be frank, I think I didn't have the skills, and I didn't have the portfolio or the background to quite earn my way into a development position. And also, I've heard that Denver is a very high percentage of college graduates, and a lot of just highly educated people here. So it probably didn't help that I was applying in this market. Um, but yeah, I guess it's just very competitive, and I don't think I had the skills for it.
So you were just talking about how like you didn't have the skills maybe at the time, but one thing that I was kind of reading about your story was the mentality, right? Because despite having like faced so many hardships, having been declined by so many jobs, you still persevered to try and make something of your career. And now you're successful. You just got a job. And so I just wanted to say, especially for younger people like us who haven't experienced that first like decline from a job, what would what would you tell us if that happens and when that happens?
Yeah, it's obviously it's going to happen to everybody who goes out there and applies. You're going to have rejection, and that's a tough thing to deal with, especially for certain people more than others maybe. But I think a thing that I've realized is that not all development jobs are exactly the same, and not all design jobs are exactly the same. Every role has little different requirements, that they want you to. For example, for a developer, some jobs are going to want you to know C++, or some jobs are going to be more front end jobs, and for designers, some jobs are going to want you to be real UI design specific skills, where some are going to be more maybe a UX research type role. And so I think, so for one, you need to find the position that's a really good fit for your skills, and you need to be able to deal with rejection. And you just need to have the mindset that, okay, I didn't make it this time. I just need to go back to the drawing board and try to put more case studies in my portfolio, try to add more code to my GitHub, try to add some certifications, and just kind of have a period of sustained work to try to improve your profile, and then go back out and give it another shot.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess since you have that background of being, transitioning from software development to UI, we were wondering, I guess, what are some of the differences between like UI design and I guess like software development? And I think you touched on this, like how easy transition was, but kind of what kind of things from software development were kind of transferable to UI design? And I guess similarly, I guess considering some of the strikeouts that we were talking about, what did you kind of improve on to go from your your software development career to a UI design career? So kind of like comparing contrasting those two and their experiences with them.
Mhm. Sure. Well, yeah, software uh, development is, of course, getting into the code editor and writing out functions and figuring that all out. And then the design end, of course, is just it's a little more human centered or human oriented. And I think the experience in my coding boot camp was definitely super valuable, just to understand how how the website is put together, and sort of understand the possibilities and the limitations. And also I think to have an appreciation of how difficult it is to build software, and to create a website, and to you really you value the developers, and you really appreciate them when you know how hard that type of work is. And then you really try to do your job as a designer to kind of make it as easy as possible for them to build your site, and try to use the kind of components that they're familiar with, or just make things easy on them. But I think a lot of the experience was definitely valuable, and just to have the certification and on my resume was definitely one of the keys to getting into the industry, I think.
Okay. So I guess now that we kind of have a good understanding of your background, you spent a good amount of time learning about your journey and your background. I think what's probably more interesting would be kind of like, what do you do on like a day-to-day basis? What does UI like design really entail? What does it mean? And like, what does like a normal work day look for you? Because it's Friday, so I assume you went to work today. So I guess what does like work look like?
Sure. So one thing that I'm really finding out firsthand now is that I'm sure you guys have heard of Agile, and almost all tech companies, I guess, use Agile methodology. And what that is it's a methodology for developing complex products. So it doesn't necessarily have to be software, but so some of the things that Agile that comes with Agile is a certain set of meetings, and there's something called a sprint. So different companies will have a 2-week sprint, and some will have a 3-week sprint, and that's kind of I think most common is a 2-week sprint. And so your sprint will at my current company and at my former company, we're both your sprint starts on a Thursday, and then it goes for 2 weeks. And so you have at the beginning of the sprint, you have sprint planning. And then every day in the morning, you have stand up. So that's stand up. You just go and you meet with certain teams. So at my current company, I have 2 stand up meetings that I go to every morning at, there's 8:45 and then one at 9. And you just sort of check in with the team, and you let them know what did I do yesterday, what am I working on today, and are there any blockers? And so there's some of these terms like blockers, which just means, is there any issues that's preventing you from getting your work done? And then at the end of the sprint, you have a sprint review where you look at what you got done, and then you have a sprint retro where you talk about a retrospective, and you talk about what you did well, what you didn't do well, what you can improve on, and try to just kind of gel with your team on stuff like that. Just this morning, I had a product backlog refinement meeting, which is looking at the stories. They're called user stories, or like the tasks that are to be given to developers and by developer in Agile, I'm a developer, and pretty much everyone is a developer, quote unquote, in Agile. So that just means that you're one of the people who are working to complete these tasks to build this product. So I'm finding out that at my current company, a lot of this type of framework is very similar to my last one, and so that's made it kind of easy to transition. And so I that probably didn't give you a real clear idea of the work that I do, but more of a framework of how it gets done. But I can try to give you some specific examples. But what would you like to know specifically about the work that I do?
Well, I guess one of the main assumptions like that we have, I guess, for UI UX developers, like, oh, they're looking at things like what a page looks like, layout, like colors, what is appealing to a user. And well, I'm sure like that possibly is a part of the job. It's probably not the whole of it. So we kind of wanted to learn what exactly, like what parts of integration, what parts of the entire design does a developer part?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I think there's a bit of a perception that UX and UI design is kind of just like graphic design, but with an added element that you're creating a picture that's interactive. And I mean, in the end result is in UI design is sort of doing that, but that's kind of the last step or one of the steps in the process. But there's a lot of work that is done that, I mean, I guess just to put it simply, it's about solving problems. And so there's complex problems that need to be solved. And a lot of the times when you start a project, you don't know what the final UI is going to look like. And a lot of the times in the beginning of a project, I try not to even picture what the UI is going to look like, because I'm trying to think more in terms of in the beginning of what is the problem, and communicating with people and figuring out what their problems are and how this product is going to make their life easier in some way. And then there's a lot of research sometimes on, you'll do competitive analysis and look at similar products, and then a lot of the times it's great to do flow charts to figure out. So before you're even thinking of in terms of web pages or screens, you think in terms of kind of a flow, a user flow, and try to identify the steps in a process and identify the decision points where the user's path will diverge and go two different directions, or loop back and repeat steps again. And so I try to really, before I even picture the final UI, I try to figure out those problems, and then it makes it a lot easier to, once you have that figured out, to kind of get into the visual and the interaction design and that type of stuff.
Yeah, so for this question, it probably varies by company, but at your current job, like if you run into these technical problems or like these blocks, like where would you go for help? Is there any other like UI designer you work with, or how does your team work, and how do you get help when you like run into a block?
Yeah, so a lot of times you'll your Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master is sort of the person who runs the stand-up meetings and just checks in with everybody to see how they're doing. And they'll a lot of the times ask if you have any blockers and if there's anything that they can do to help. So sometimes it might be something that the Scrum Master could give you a hand with, or you might need to have a little more communication with the developer, and they'll help you out with that. Or it could always be a technical issue that you're having with your machine, and then in that case you need help from the IT team. And so yeah, depending on the problem, you'll sort of go to different places to solve it. And I found that that's a skill kind of in and of itself. I think working in tech is knowing, just understanding who everybody is, what everybody does, and how they can help you, and knowing where to go for help for which problems is sort of one of those soft skills, I guess, that is super, super important for sure.
Yeah, so kind of moving away from what you do in like a workplace setting into the technical components of UI. One thing that a lot of us wonder about when we're developing like small projects is, how do we make sure we display all the content we need to, but keep it simple? So in design, how do you strike a balance between functionality and simplicity?
Yeah, I'm a big believer in, I like to try to make my designs as sort of minimalist and functionalist as they can be. So I try to think about removing everything that's not necessary, anything from just components on the page to just small graphical elements and really think about if they really need to be there or not. And it's sort of it is a challenge sometimes to decide when, for example, if you're walking a user through an onboarding process or some kind of application, there's kind of a balance between, you don't want to put too much on the page to overwhelm the user, but you also don't want to make them walk through too many steps, and too many clicks to get something finished. So that's a tough one. It's tough to answer and really give a kind of a guideline for that, but it's sort of case specific, I guess. And it really depends on what type of process you're trying to get through, and how much information. So yeah, it's kind of a balance there.
Yeah, so I had a quick question. So how much code do you actually like need to do in UI design? Because I know a lot of people are like, they don't want to jump into the tech field because say they don't like code. So how much code is actually involved in it?
Not much, if at all. For me, I the only time I've written any code at work was just kind of for fun. And I so there are folks, for example, at my previous company, who her title was lead UI engineer. And so she was a designer who had also worked for 10 years as a developer. So she did both. But in most cases, as a UI designer, you won't really be asked to write code. But you will need to kind of understand how the code works, and you will be asked by developers to go and sort of and look at documentation about the code for different components. So that, yeah, I guess you won't really be asked to write a lot of it, but you'll need to sort of reference it and understand it at times.
So one of the more important parts, right, of a company, of course, are customers. So I wanted to ask, right, if a customer's desires may not like always result maybe in good UI, like how do you kind of compromise between doing what the customer wants while also providing a good UI to make it look good?
Yeah, honestly, in my professional work, I haven't had a lot of direct interaction with customers. And in my previous company, there really wasn't a lot in terms of UX artifacts of customer interviews or personas or anything like that. So at my past company, you're sort of designing for the customer by way of the product owner. So there were product owners from each credit union, and they would, I'm sure, meet with customers and try to understand their needs. And so often you would present your design to the product owner, and they would kind of have something in mind about what the customer needs and what they would be thinking about this. So that's kind of how things work there. At my current company, there's a little more. I just got actually access today to some user interviews and some personas and some kind of surveys. So at my current company, we have kind of three personas that I'm focusing on to design products now, which is the member or the client who is using the services, and the agent, who is the driver, often either a delivery driver or driving for the ride app. And then there's also an administrator. And so they're the one who are kind of looking at the health insurance information and connecting everyone. So now I feel like I have a little better feel for what the customer needs and what all of these entities and their pain points. And so I think really the customer is the most important thing. That's you need to build a product that they like and that makes their life better and just helps them in some way. So that's the most important thing.
Cool. So I was also wondering, how do you continue learning while you're still on the job? So for example, are you still trying to learn new software to expand your knowledge base? So for example, I know you started your first position while you were still learning UI and UX. So how do you just continue keeping up with these?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's really important to to keep learning and pushing your skills, especially in tech, because because things are moving and changing so quickly, and two, because it is very competitive, and I'm sure there's a lot of people who are entering the job market every day. So I think that's something I really try to do and make a priority when I can. At my last company, I did some training. I did a 4-day. My company sent me to a 4-day course on developing user requirements. So that is basically what you need to do at the beginning of every project to understand what the the software needs to achieve, and how it needs to do that, and how quickly. And so that, I think, was really a big help for me to add to my resume, just to better understand that, because oftentimes in the beginning of a project as a UX designer, you will need to gather requirements and sort of develop and manage requirements. And I also I paid for myself to go take the Scrum Certified Product Owner course a few months back, and just to better understand sort of what product owners do in just managing and creating user stories, and deciding which features to build out. I learned a little bit about how to calculate ROI, to see, like, should I build this feature first, or should I try to do this one first, and what's going to give the most value to the clients. And I think that was really valuable. I also, a while back, but after I had already gotten my internship, I took a voice user interface design course with Career Foundry, with the same outfit, the same online learning platform where I learned UX, and where I'm now a tutor. I think that the voice UI design it's kind of in a weird place right now, because people have Alexa, and maybe some people use voice commands on their phone or in their car, but I feel like that technology is bound to get to a place where it's more common and more commonly used. And so I wanted to, and also I was just interested to see how it differed from a graphical user interface. And so I was happy to be able to learn about that. And so yeah, I think that's one of the most important things to stay competitive and be a good candidate in this industry, is definitely just to keep learning and expanding your skill set.
Yeah, so you mentioned a lot of your courses aren't like directly about UX UI design; they're more like company based. Do you plan? Or like, there are some of your goals to kind of move out of just the graphic design into more project leading, or is like that is UI UX design kind of the field that you're comfortable and you would like to work in?
Yeah, actually, when I got laid off, I took a couple interviews for a product owner job, and just to see what it was like. And I was thinking maybe I would give it a shot, but then I sort of had a change of heart and just really wanted to stay in the UX UI space. And I think that's what I'd like to keep doing. I could see myself maybe being a UX manager, or possibly, years down the road, in one of those higher creative director type roles where you have a little bit of a leadership position. But I'm more interested in the design, and I really love design, and so I wouldn't want to stray too far away from that. I don't think I would end up in like a more of a just manager or business analyst or anything like that.
So just kind of going back to some of the things that we said earlier, we talked about a little bit about like some new technologies you meant to learn. What are some of the technologies you use like right now? Like, I guess the one thing we know about is like Figma, but I guess we don't really know too much about like what softwares are out there in terms of like UI design. So could you maybe just quickly go over some of them and like what they do? And if people want to learn, maybe like some, like so people can kind of know what to kind of learn.
Absolutely. The first UI design software that I learned was Sketch. Sketch is great. It was kind of the first UI design specific program, I think. So before that, a lot of people would just use Photoshop to create their UI designs, and then Sketch came along and was very, very popular for a while. And then as a tutor at Career Foundry, they allow their students to submit Sketch or Adobe XD files. And so I've gotten a little bit into Adobe XD. It's a great software too. It's where where with Sketch you need an extra plugin like InVision for the software prototyping. With XD, it has its own prototyping feature, so I think that's kind of cool. It's great, obviously, if you're a Photoshop and InDesign person and Illustrator, and if you like the Adobe Creative Cloud, then that's a great one. Lately, I've been my new company. We use Figma, so Figma is kind of the latest and greatest in UI design, and it's more of a browser-based software and has great collaboration features, and it's got some kind of features that Sketch doesn't have. I think like these just different ways to manipulate the components and so aside from design softwares, I guess. There's like Lucid Chart is something that we use at my company for flow charts. What else? I've used several different websites for like preference testing. So if you have kind of a component or a screen where you're wondering if you should have it, a blue, dark blue, or light blue, and then you throw up two screens and send out a survey and have people just click on the one they like, and you get great results from that. I know, I don't know if you guys have ever watched there's a documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And so those big companies, that big digital products, they just run thousands and thousands and thousands of preference tests essentially to make their products as pleasing as possible. And so that's a great technology to use. Yeah, the prototyping softwares are awesome. It's awesome to use prototype to be able to do usability testing and have someone really go click around on your design as if it was already a website or an app. And you can even pull up your design on your cell phone and see how it looks on your actual device, and that's pretty awesome. What else do I use? Can't think of many other softwares that I use at the moment. I'm sort of starting over with a new stack at my new company, so I'm sure there'll be some more that I come upon there.
Yeah, just definitely like a lot to learn, I guess. And no, but I guess one thing that's a little different is and maybe you don't know because you haven't been in like the UI design field for so long, but like we're wondering like how has UI design kind of like evolved over time? Like has there been like kind of trends that people are going towards? Like I think one thing we know about is like people can try to be minimalist like these days in their websites, but if I kind of like go back and look at some websites from like people who made them a long time ago, they look really different, right? They kind of have like, I guess you would say archaic fonts and everything. So I was wondering if how has it evolved and like what is like kind of the like the current trend in how to design UI?
Yeah, I think one thing that is really, really interesting is how relatively new the field is. I honestly, I don't know a ton about the history, but we've had a little bit of an introduction through some of the courses that I've taken. But I think, basically not more than, 20 years ago, you barely would hear of UX designer or UI designer. And a lot of the design was done, I think, probably by the front end developers. And a lot of places, that's the smaller companies, that's kind of still how it is in some cases. And so, yeah, it is exciting because it's so new, and just the look and feel is always changing. Like you said, there's always different trends coming along, and so yeah, I think it's I feel like it's only going to get more and more interesting from here on out. As soon as the next great leap in technology comes in, and then we've got our contact lenses with the computer chip in them, and some the next crazy products. So I think it's only going to get more exciting and keep evolving from here.
Yeah, so you talked about the evolution of the field. So what kind of new technologies do you envision that are going to come out that would like make your job easier as a UI designer?
Yeah. Let's see. I think right now with the way things are, everything is pretty developed and pretty refined at this point. So I can't really think honestly of too much more that would make my job that much easier. There's already so many great tools for collaboration and for design and development. Um, it's hard. That's a good question. It's hard for me to picture that one.
So with the UI world, right, that might be, of course, transitioning over the next couple of years, do you envision yourself kind of like in the UI field, staying in some sort of a 9 to 5 job, or do you kind of see yourself branching out into something different?
Mhm. Yeah, I think probably for the next for the foreseeable future, I think I'll be in probably a 9 to 5 job, but eventually I do think it would be great to potentially start my own design agency, or have a team working together to build websites. Um, I have some people reaching out to me on Instagram lately, asking me to design their websites, and I'm like, I've got a full-time job and a part-time job, so I don't really have time for it. And I was if I could get a team together and to help me out, I think that would be something that I could do. So yeah, I think probably the next at least 5 to 10 years, I think I would probably stay in a corporate environment, at least to some extent. But down the road, I would definitely be interested in trying to branch out. And I mean, everybody wants to have that type of freedom and flexibility where you're the boss and you can go fly to Hawaii for a week and tell the workers to finish the website. So that would that would be great someday.
Yeah, so you have some great responses on like the day-to-day life of the UI designer and stuff, and like what kind of technologies you use. So we wanted to have you look at a couple of our websites and give some feedback on it potentially on like what we could improve, or like some viewers can use your advice in their own projects. So I first wanted to show our own podcast website. I can share my screen now. Yeah. So this is kind of the layout we have for our website. So we start on the home page, and you can just pop in feedback or any thoughts you have on the like structure of the site.
Mhm. Yeah, it's really not bad. You've got a pretty consistent visual identity. I took a look at it, and then I took a look at your podcast also. You've got a pretty consistent color scheme, and this page looks pretty standard for a landing page with some good CTAs there. Um, I think it looks very usable. Um, I guess one thing that I could pick on would just be the white text is in some places over top of some light colors. So the readability suffers in a couple places. Something that I've seen is using kind of a light background gradient possibly behind those titles, so that the bottom of the screen is a high saturated color, and then as it goes up, and then it would get lighter and lighter and reveal the picture underneath. Something like that would be a possible solution. But I think you guys have done a pretty good job so far.
Oh, real quick on that. So you're saying change like the background of these, like each little kind of picture, and do sort of gradient instead of like I guess changing the fonts or the font color.
Yeah, well, if you change the font color, that's not really an adequate solution because unless you do like an outlined font where it would be like a white in the middle with a black outline, because if you make it darker, then it'll just blend in with the background. But there are some places where the readability is tough. So that would just be one thing that I would pick on, I guess.
Right. And I guess one thing I was wondering is like we kind of want to have like the catalog of like episodes each time we upload, we just like post a new little tile. So do you think like right now, I'm sure we can adjust this, but right now we have like a 3, 3, and then a 1. And the way we do is we do like 10 seasons or 10 episodes per season. So do you think they're like, I guess I don't know if putting like 5 in a row would be like too much or too small, but like what do you think maybe a good option here would to like kind of lay these out?
Yeah, so yeah, I guess you could another thing you could consider would be a kind of a carousel where there's an arrow on the right, to click and to keep looking over, and rather than scrolling down. That might be one way to take advantage of sort of screen real estate, and but also let the user know that there's more to see. That would be just one idea.
I see. Okay. And I guess this is maybe not like necessarily UI design, more of like a marketing thing. Do you think having like a at the top of the page, do you think if you want to scroll up to the top of the page again, but like right now what we're doing is we kind of have just like a title page. Do you think it'd be better to have maybe let's say like the title and then like a brief description and like some sort of promotion there? Or do you think kind of having like the newest episode there with like a link would be a better option? Like what maybe it's more of a marketing question, but what would be a better way to present like the initial page that people see?
I think this is a pretty good approach. I can see there's an About Us page, so if the user wants to learn more about you guys, then they can go there. If they want to just get started listening to the podcast, then they can click, or they can go to either YouTube or Spotify. So that seems like it seems like a pretty good landing page to me.
Yeah, I can just go over the next couple of pages and you can just nitpick like anything that you can see that is wrong. Like we have the About Us page, it's a completely different page. So you can just nitpick what you think maybe a little bit out of place or needs to be addressed maybe. It's kind of like the same layout with the podcast tiles we had in the first page.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah.
Yeah, it looks pretty good. I guess one thing is with the profile pictures is these days it's pretty universal to have profile pictures be round. So rather than rectangular. So that would be just one thing that I might think about. Also, I guess you can consider something to sort of take advantage of the screen real estate, similar to my previous comment. You could just have the users maybe scroll to the right to view more of the images, and could possibly reduce the size of the images slightly so you could see all of you guys together easier. Would be one idea. And then maybe, I don't know if you have a like a bio for each one of you, if maybe could be a read more type link or button, or a learn more for each individually to, I don't know, view your individual bios or something like that.
Yeah, okay. That makes a lot of sense. So we wanted to get into our second website now, which is kind of a project that focuses on like detecting like suicidal tendencies and like text. So we kind of set it up like a product with a big homepage, basically describing our product and our mission and our process. And then each of these individual sub pages you see on the nav bar right here are gonna like be the actual product and actually like detecting using these messages and like text boxes and stuff. So I can quickly run through this page and like pretty much anyone can make any comments they have on the site.
I like the color scheme, looks pretty good. The text, one idea on the text, something that I like to use and is just maybe show the first 3 lines or 4 lines of the paragraph, and then have a link on a small text link on the bottom right that just says read more, so that it's sort of reduces the cognitive load on the user, and then if they're interested, then they just click to read more. That could be one idea.
Yeah, definitely.
So on the like initial, like at the very top on the initial page, there's like the picture and then the menu bar, and like the colors kind of conflict there. Do you see that as like a problem, or like you can see like the home screen selected and the purple kind of blends with the picture?
Yeah, it looks like ample contrast to me. However, it's not the only differentiation between the active selected tab and the others is color. So one thing you want to consider when designing websites is ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act, accessibility. So I actually have a post on my Instagram page called Design for the Colorblind, because when I'm designing, I like, especially with the active tab or active icon, to add something that's a difference in form or a difference in color value rather than just difference in hue. Because if you were colorblind and you looked at these 3 words, although one is purple and the others are kind of gray, they're pretty similar in terms of value. So if you looked at them in black and white, you probably wouldn't be able to tell which one was active or selected. And so you'll notice that often the like bottom navigation menus will use an underline just under the active tab or icon, or they'll use like an outline filled style where the inactive icons have an outlined style, and then the selected icon is a filled style where it's solid. So that would be one thing I would consider, maybe, is just using an underline under the active tab there.
That's interesting. We never really thought about like designing websites for colorblind and stuff. The other thing was this project is kind of like a service page, as in there's like some expected user input, and then it'll generate some sort of prediction. Which, like, if you want to show the initial analysis and advanced analysis page.
Yeah, let's just quickly go through the rest of this page and then we can move on to that. So this part, like, it's a counter that loads up the statistics of our project, and we found it kind of neat. Yeah. So do you have any input on whether this is useful for like a UI design?
Let me just read it real quick. Yeah, I think it seems valuable to me, and this type of component, I think, is really it's a really effective to have this kind of thing with numbers. When I designed my website for my previous company, Open Technology Solutions, actually have sort of a similar component where there's 5 different companies in the consortium. And so we had how many bank branches and how many office buildings and how many credit union members and how many this. And so it was sort of similar to this with like 4 or 5 different numbers. And that was a big hit with the leadership at the company. And I think people really like components like this. So I think it's good.
Yeah. So the rest of the page is pretty much a similar like UI design. Yeah. And let's move on to the analysis page. This is for like a user who wants to get their like prediction very quickly. It's like a one-stop shop for determining if like a patient is like suicidal or depressed. So it's like a one-stop shop for it. I know Sajid had something you wanted to discuss for this.
Yeah, so one thing that we kind of had a debate about was like at the very top. I thought like including an image and like just like a title was like unnecessary. It just made it like the user had to scroll down to get to the part that they kind of know what they're selecting on the page for. So, what do you think images add to this site, and do you think like they're necessary or overused?
Um, yeah, I think it's the image sort of sets the tone, definitely, and just sort of lets you know what this space is, what the product is about, and the color scheme matches with all your others. Yeah, I guess one thing that I would criticize on this page is there's not really a clear call to action. There's kind of a subtitle and then a title, but it's a little, I guess, without scrolling down the page, the user might not just doesn't really know what they're supposed to do here, maybe. So I might just consider adding some kind of call to action, and that doesn't have to be a button. It could be, it could be just something that says scroll down to learn more, or it could be, something like that. But yeah, I think it does feel a little empty, maybe.
Right. Okay. That makes sense. And
Yeah.
I guess that part, yeah. And then I guess here's just like the basic like user interaction. Like I think maybe is there like a better way to just do, I guess, if they need to type, like, type something up, or I guess is like a text box like this, maybe should it be wider, or like are the buttons, I guess, is this layout great? Would you want maybe two buttons next to each other, or like one above, one below?
Hmm. For the width, I think the width is good. You never want to stretch text too wide, because the most readable line length is about 45 to 75 characters. So this looks like a pretty good line length to me. I definitely wouldn't go any wider. In terms of the buttons, so tell me what is the user doing on this screen? Give me an introduction to
Yeah.
what they're doing here.
Yeah, sure. So basically, this the basic concept of the project is that if you have if you kind of like have an idea that maybe your loved one is kind of based on like their tone and the things they say, they might be like depressed or have some sort of mental health issues. Basically, this is like an AI screening app that basically if you input text, it can run like a prediction on that and determine, like, on a scale, like how likely is this to be like depressed, or how likely is it to be suicidal. So that's kind of the basic concept of the project, and it was like a hackathon project, so it was more of like a trying to build like a something that works. But right here is just where the user would basically either upload the screenshot or type in the things they've heard and stuff like that. So this is just like the main user interaction of the entire app.
Mhm. Okay, I see. Yeah. And so if they click on the upload screenshot button, what happens?
It's just a regular like upload and then it'll submit. But basically, actually maybe if you want to just write something and just show them like the next page of like,
Yeah.
I guess what happens after. But basically, it'll just be like basic typing or whatever. And right now, like, we can just upload anything and it'll kind of show. So it kind of just loads, and then while it's running, it will, hopefully it doesn't crash. Right now it does crash sometimes, but let's see.
It's not going to crash. And I reset it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but it takes a little while to load. But basically, the context for this page is basically like a quick analysis. The next page is for the more like time-consuming analysis. So yeah.
And so this is kind of just like a basic, I guess, guide of like what to do next after you have this. Maybe like what are the next steps of using the app. And we have like I guess the redirect to the next page is right there, where it says please go to our advanced analysis page. But is there maybe so, and that's one question, is a bad way to do that. And the other question would be, basically we're putting our output, we say, according to our algorithm, the text has been classified as depression. Do you think maybe that should be like on its own line bolded, or is this layout good, or what do you think?
Um, so I just had a thought on the last page that you were showing me. I was thinking maybe um, I'm not always a big fan of like having the sort of having the input field right there ready to go, and then having the button or the screenshot upload ready to go. I would think about maybe having a title, some kind of title that says, um, "Are you concerned about your loved one?" Title, and then says um, either upload a screenshot or submit a comment to receive advice or receive, or something along those lines. And then maybe just having two buttons. One says upload screenshot and one says enter comment. And then when you click the either one, then it goes to the respective modal, or maybe even after, if you click open or submit comment, enter comment, then the input field appears, or something like that, just so that you give the user just a simple choice between two buttons, rather than having the button and then the input field and then another button.
So kind of have like a drop down in a sense of like, don't just prompt them right away, kind of explain what's going on, and then like let them themselves kind of get ready to upload.
Yeah, I think just make it just make the choice look as simple as possible. And also, I guess there's a thing here that is it's not clear if they need to do one or the other, or if they need to do both. And if you click upload screenshot, then I guess I'm not sure what to expect, if it's going to have a modal pop up and then I upload it, and then can I leave a comment too, and then hit submit, and then it submits both of them? Or when I upload the screenshot, am I just going to submit the screenshot? But what if I want to leave a comment too? So I guess having it's a little seems just a little disjointed somehow, maybe.
I see. Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
great.
so-
We'll definitely consider that. Yeah.
Yeah, so after this page, the users like redirected to our advanced analysis page where they get more like advanced screening on like specifics on like how depressed they are based on like a professional like rating on how depressed you are, and like just basically more advanced analysis on like a patient.
Mhm.
So here we have like 3 different text boxes and like a description of what you need to input.
Mhm.
It's kind of the same thing as the first one, except there's like 3 different ones, so you can notice changes in the suicidal tendencies or depressive tendencies.
Mhm. So can you scroll up to the text at the top? So one thing I would advise would be to either reduce the amount of text here or to break it up, um, because it's just it's a lot of lines of text, and then text with varying styling also. I think the please note that this application is still in development. I would probably make that look more like a disclosure, and probably be smaller than the paragraph text above it, and maybe have just a little asterisk by it, and so that the user reads it more as a kind of a disclosure, rather than when it's kind of bold like this and about the same size as the paragraph text, then it seems important, like we definitely need to read it. um, and so I would definitely I would explore ways to reduce the amount of text at the top of the screen here, because um, yeah, it's a lot of it's a large cognitive load kind of right off the bat when you go to the page.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I guess that's kind of like the main questions we had about the website, these 2 pages, but we really appreciate you looking at the 2 websites. These are probably our 2. I get we did a lot of other hackathon projects, but these are the main ones that we kind of still work on. So we really appreciate the feedback, because we are going to still work on these improvement. But yeah, thanks so much for the feedback on the website, and yeah, we definitely had a great conversation.
Yeah, I enjoyed talking to you guys, And once again, great work. And I'm sure you guys are going to have a really bright future.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so I guess we're just gonna conclude it here. We had a great conversation about how they got into the field of UI through kind of an unconventional background, how UI has evolved, the specifics of UI and working with customers. And then we got some feedback on some of our own websites and we saw the technical aspects of UI design. And we learned a lot today. And we'd like to thank our guests for coming on. We had a really good time talking to you. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
guys.